Welcome to the Creative Warriors Podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. Welcome back. Welcome back to Creative Warriors Podcast. We are so excited to have Susan Magnano with us today. We are continuing our conversation from last week, and we're going to talk about some great things. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Well, we're going to dive right in. I'm going to ask you this question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
How do you incorporate personal experiences and perspectives into your photography work?
Ooh, good one. Well, I think there's nothing more personal than my light painting photos. Secretly, they're really just cool selfies because it's me in the picture with some lights. You actually don't see me. I'm dancing around in the darkness and putting the lights in between me. But it's really fun because it's a way that I'm actually incorporating lights and painting with lights throughout a long exposure of my photo. So I'm using light tubes and flashlights and fire and I'm hidden in the darkness. So what I love about it is also like a very unique photo that I can't even recreate sometimes. So as an artist, I feel like we're always trying to get a unique picture. And with doing light painting photos or doing anything that involves adding your own personal touches, you're able to create a unique perspective.
That is definitely a unique perspective.
Yeah.
I'll have to look for you in the picture. Can I find you at all or not really?
Occasionally you'll see my feet. I will been caught a couple times when the light painted and the light shined on my feet. Currently, sometimes I'll delete it out, but when I'm trying to teach people how to do this, I'll leave it in to show, hey, like, look, this is what's possible. I wear black like a ninja, so you don't see me as much. Because if you wear bright white shoes, they'll reflect all the light. So you got to wear dark shoes, dark pants. And then I just dance through the scene and then I don't stay in one place long enough to register in the frame. So that's like the secret of doing the light painting. But what I've learned is like, even if you go to like a really well-known location, like I go to like near places in New York City, I'll do a long exposure and I'll just go over and I'll add my own light graffiti, which is really like taking a flashlight and drawing on it like chalk. And then I'm like, haha, I've left my own light graffiti and I could write things like, I heart New York City. I could write a little message. And it's like being like a little like a little ninja, light ninja walking around, leaving little messages everywhere. And it's a way just to incorporate like my own personal touch into every picture.
Cool. Your personality is coming through your photography. That's beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So when you talk about your journey and your life, and we talked a little bit about it in the last episode, but how do you balance the need to prioritize your safety and well-being when you're out in the field? Now, you talked about being in New York City. There's fear factors there, and being in the middle of Utah in the middle of the night where there's rattlesnakes and many other things. So how do you, in those moments when you have to be cautious and smart, but yet you want to be creative and not have to be concerned, what are some things you do to open that up for yourself?
Good question. I feel like safety is a number one priority. So when I'm out somewhere out west, and if I go out on my own, I tell people where I'm going to be. I have a GPS tracker with me. Now our iPhones have a GPS built into it. So if you run into problems, you can use that. But I used to have this Garmin GPS tracker with me just in case that happened. I bring lots of flashlights. I like to bring pepper spray with me. So those are like things when I'm out west and I'm going to like a little bit remote areas. When I'm in the city, it's a different set of fears. Like I'm not looking for rattlesnakes. I'm looking for like people. People are more scarier than actually like a rattlesnake that I may or may not see. So I like to travel with somebody. Like it's not always true. I don't always have somebody to go out with at night in New York City, but I like to go to more visited places, not so secluded places. And I like to be at least with 2 or 3 people. So I'll even have a friend tag along who's just there to be my spotter, because again, I'm carrying expensive equipment in the dark, easy target, and normally it's me and another girlfriend of mine. We're just out there doing things. So I call on some of my bigger guy friends to be like, what are you doing tonight? You want to come be a bodyguard? So, and also I carry my tripod like a baseball bat. I think when I'm walking home at night, I'll just carry it like with the leg extended over my shoulder and say, like, I mean business. Like, don't mess with me. I know they're silly things, but like really, there's like a lot of fear that goes on in my mind. I'm like, is it worth this? And then typically, almost every time I say, thank God I did that, I pushed through my fear to go out and do that. Because then I sit at home being like, why am I letting my fear conquer my sense of creativity or my creativity? So I'd say you have to trust your instinct and do something to make it more safe by telling people and bringing people with you.
Good suggestions. Absolutely. When I was in Tennessee earlier in the year, I was going to be hiking by myself, which was a little spooky for me because I had never done it before. And I had my giant can of bear spray. I was ready.
Right.
Didn't need to use it, but been on a trail before and seen with other people and saw a bear, and that can be like a spooky experience. But
Sure. Like
so
I get
got to be
nervous of
smart.
seeing like my backpack on the ground. One time I was like, what is that creature over there? And it was my backpack in the shade. I was like, oh, it came over. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's my backpack. Like I really have a vivid sense of imagination, like idea of ghosts, aliens,
Being
like
abducted.
everything comes to mind, especially when I'm out west in Sedona. I'm like, is that an alien? Like, just like I have a very imaginative mind in the darkness. So it's nice to have someone there to ground you, and I
Do
think
you
it's
wear a red light? One of those
yeah, headlamp, yep.
there's one with night that has like
Yeah, the night red mode.
yeah,
Yeah, I do carry one of those as well. They're helpful to see everything.
very neat. Yeah, we have to be smart. So sometimes
I
if
know,
you're going to do something adventurous like that, do your research. I mean, there's
totally true.
plenty of blogs that, in fact, I think there's a few photographers that's pretty much what they have kind of niched into that world where they're helping women be adventurous safely. I mean,
Mhm.
that's kind of their strength. So they're sharing that strength with people, which is kind of neat.
I was thinking one of my on my to-do list is to start a women's night photography group that we just say, "Hey, you wanna go out tonight? Sure, let's go out tonight, and let's, like, just get together with this, like, girl power in groups and go out and do creative things." So,
That's neat.
stand
You should
by,
do
I'm
that.
working.
Yeah. Keep us up to dated. Blah, blah, can't talk. All right. So, how do you strive to remain open and curious in your photography work? And how does this impact your creative output?
Hmm. Well, I have to say I'm blessed with a curious mind. My desire to learn everything keeps me up at night. So I'm always learning different techniques and being inspired by other people's work. I have to admit that I am occasionally on Instagram scouring images and putting images in my mind. Um, One thing that helps me to be more curious and more keep my mind kind of creative is every day my partner and I we talk about what we're grateful for. And we say we're grateful for so we can acknowledge how blessed we are. But we also talk about what we've learned. So by putting these two things into action, like saying, okay, I'm going to acknowledge what I'm grateful for today, all the blessings that happened, you're seeking that out. And the same thing goes for what you learned. So if you're openly looking to see what you learned, you're putting it more embedded in your mind so you can report it at the end of the day. So it'd be like, hey, I didn't learn anything today. Maybe I should do that. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like every day goes by, I have to say, well, at least I learned one thing, whether it was something I didn't do right. So I'd be like, hey, I learned how to do that a different way because I didn't do it right today, or you learned like, hey, I learned it from this guy on Instagram that you can do this special technique with your iPhone. So by making it a point to announce it at the end of the day, you're putting it into a special folder in your mind that you have to find it again, as opposed to the things that we learned that we just let fly and then we forget about them. And then we remember that we learned them at some point, when we see them again. But these are ways that I try and remember things better.
I love that
And I think
idea.
it's really helpful.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because not only I mean, I've heard people who have the practice of gratitude, three things you're grateful
Right.
for, but adding the learning factor to that kind of takes it to another level because and you had said in the previous episode that you're a student of life. And I really liked that statement because the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And that's okay. At one point, I mean, we try to master things, and I don't think there's I think that word should go away, because is there such a thing? Probably, maybe, I don't know. That's a whole nother discussion, but but the fact that you live a life of learning is really enriching. It's like you grow as every day passes, and that's beautiful. Upgrade your experience with our premium subscription. Enjoy exclusive features, enhanced content, and seamless extended interviews. Elevate your enjoyment and personal growth with our premium subscription today. If you enjoy the Creative Warrior podcast, the female heart and soul of photography, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you.
I think that's like the only thing that differentiates like a professional from an amateur is that we've taken more failure. We've had more failures. We've taken more risks, and we've learned from them. Like I remember when I started out as a wedding photographer, was like really green, and I was great because I had the ability to work under people, and I was like, okay, I can see what they're doing and I'm learning from their mistakes. So then when I would make the mistake myself, I'd know how to fix it, already. And I felt like that was the benefit of experience, is when you have the problem, which you surely will have, you will know how to fix it quicker. And that makes you more professional than the amateur who sits there and is trying to fix it for the first time. So having these minor little failures or setbacks or just glitches helps you to be ready for when it happens again. You don't know how to prepare for it, or you know how to solve it, or you know how to make it never happen again.
How to fix it on camera, right?
Right.
There is such a thing. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So we talked about this before too, but let's see if we can dig a little deeper. But is there a technique or a tip of cultivating that sense of presence and being aware during a shoot? So you talked about your 30-second exposure, your time lapse. So you take that time personally. Is there anything else you have done? And the iPhone technique you talked about. Is there anything else you've done to to cultivate that sense of appreciation and gratitude when you're out in the middle of a beautiful area and it's just, the sun is beautiful, the sky, I mean, everything is just screaming gorgeous. So instead of trying to capture it, like take it inside.
Yeah. So I'd say something I try and do is when I arrive on a scene, before you take out your camera, you just take a look. Take a look and enjoy that you made it to the mountaintop or to the valley. Nothing ever comes easy. You had to drive to get there. You had to go through traffic. You had to hike. Take a moment, appreciate your environment that you just achieved, whether it's in a busy street corner that you just got to, or whatever it is, or maybe it's the wedding or the moment. You just got to this location. Before you even take out your camera, just assess this beautiful place and say, I made it. I made it, and see what catches your eye. It's also helpful to have your gear be prepared. Like that's another thing that takes you out of the moment, is fumbling around with your gear. Oh, I don't have my memory card. Oh, my battery is dying. Da, 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 da. Like as you become like more well-rounded, you'll have all that gear ready. So when you arrive and you're ready now, you had your moment, you're ready to take a picture, you're not fumbling around. You know how to work your settings. You're not even thinking about your settings. You say, you know what, I'm shooting a landscape. I want to shoot at f11. I'm going to be on a tripod, so I'll be at ISO 100. And then you just know everything, and that comes with experience. And then lastly would be like having a vision in mind. I mean, you can look at pictures online, or you could just assess and be like, you know what, I'm going to take a sunset today, and I want to make sure I have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. And then you say, okay, I'm here. Let's find that foreground element. So then you start looking for the trees, the grass, or the whatever. So having a vision in mind will help you stay in the moment, because now you're looking for something specific, instead of just fumbling around and trying to get there, and taking that moment for yourself. And just be open to what's in front of you, because it may not be what you expected. And important, you probably learned this on a couple workshops. If you're shooting the sunset, make sure you look behind you too, because you never know what's happening behind you, maybe even more spectacular than what's in front of you.
It often is, as weird as that is.
And I do this. I do challenge all my students at some point, if we're shooting something that's like an insane sunset, to take a moment and experience it, because this is your time too, like look through it with your eyes and not just your camera lens.
Yeah. Or your heart. you know?
Oh, does it know in your heart?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Can you describe a time when you had to make a compromise to achieve the life work balance? So I think that question made sense.
I feel like I'm always making compromises because being like a photographer who I don't have a team, it's just me, so I'm single business owner. So my social life can suffer. I work 24/7 to achieve the goals. Like there's always something to do. Like, oh, even when there's nothing immediate, like, oh, I have to get these pictures out. It's like, oh, I should redo the website. I should create my things for 2024. There's always something on the agenda. So my list never really ends. So it's actually like a hard balance. And I feel like even like when I'm home visiting my parents, I could be in front of my computer, it suffers. And this is just like everyone who's works for themselves. People who work like a 9 to 7 job, they're like, oh, yeah, it sucks. But like when you're a freelancer, or independent business owner, it's a 24/7 job, but you manage your time. So this comes back to me. I have to say, I have to manage my time better. And I realize I need to give myself work hours. And I do this. So I'll say, okay, Suzanne, I'm not a morning person, but I am at the moment. So I'll say I'll work from 7 to 3. And then I want to have 4 hours and just doing whatever I want. Like, and if you don't time block yourself, and I didn't used to do this, I will work all day long. And I don't know if you ever heard of this. If you have to do like a presentation and you have 1 hour to do it, somehow you'll complete the presentation in 1 hour. But if you have 24 hours to do it, you will take 24 hours to complete it. So I feel like that's how I am with a lot of my work. If I don't give myself that goal of saying you have this amount of time to do it, then I will take as much time as I need. And then everything else suffers. So for me, it's kind of been a work-life balance has been a constant struggle because a lot of it is my life is my work too. So I don't have kids, so I don't have anyone else to give my time to. So why not continuously work on my passion, which is my work. So, I'm still learning. But I like the ideas of setting the workflow up, time blocking, as well as setting up deadlines, so then I keep myself online and give myself breaks when I need them.
Yeah. It's a struggle for a lot of people, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you own the business, you have to market the business, you have to be customer service. When you have to be multiple, it's very, very difficult. And it's a challenge for a lot of people. And some people honestly can't do it. I mean, obviously you've been doing it for years, so you can. And learning to say no is crazy critical. I had this client call me once, 8 o'clock at night, which I normally didn't answer, but he called like 4 or 5 times in a row. So I picked up the phone and he started to yell at me and very rude. And he said, I'm available to my clients 24/7. That was his mentality. And I said, well, I'm not. I have a family. I have other priorities. Then we're not a good mix if you want me to be available for
Right.
you 24/7. And of course, it's a totally different industry, but sometimes we have to set up those boundaries to maintain the other balances in our lives.
Yeah.
And doesn't always end up well. I mean, he was a client I had to let go because he was just too
Sure.
demanding. I don't frankly like being yelled at. So
Yeah, of course. You don't deserve that. Come on. You don't deserve that. So I'm glad you let him go. Let him go find someone else who can be available for him 24 hours.
yeah, for us, sometimes we have to say no to ourselves. In other words, um, you know, when you don't have kids, your external people are less. So you're just like, okay, but you got to set up that time. You got to schedule that time where you're going out and just enjoying whatever you want to do, whatever that is, you know, fills your heart with the joy of life, right? If it's work 24/7, some of us find joy in work.
Sure. Say you find it most of the time. But like, I think that'll be the next phase will be outsourcing the things I don't find joy in. That
Exactly.
someone who actually would be a better manager or marketer, people who excel in those fields that, we're just trying to get by and do. That's the next phase. So yes,
Yeah.
anybody, keep me posted.
Okay. Collaborative efforts are important sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Let's see. Does that balance? Do you have a sense of perfectionism at all
I'd
in
say
your
I
work?
do. I do. It's a great question to say, like, do you pay too much attention to perfectionism? And it's I work hard to make sure things are the best they can be, but sometimes you have to say, it's not perfect, but I need to move on. And it doesn't need to be perfect. Like posting on social media is one of those things where I'm like, oh, I'd like to post every day. And then I'm like, oh, I don't know if this picture is good enough. And then I don't post it. And I'm like, nobody cares if it's good enough. It's great for being a post today, people get to see that you're working hard and, it's good enough, so even when it comes to light painting, there's such
Now,
an air.
I
Yep.
have to ask you,
Yes, please.
because what you just said just shocked me. And I think it will resonate with a lot of the viewers or the listeners. They're not viewers or listeners. You just said, is it good enough? You're looking at your work and you've been doing this for years and you still are having that question. I find that
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh,
That
yeah, totally. Oh, just because I have a little bit more experience than some people doesn't mean every work I create is a gem. I like to
that's
think
true
that.
with all of us, but
So it's just like, is this worthy? And it's so funny, worthy of an Instagram post. Like it's doesn't matter. I mean, this is Instagram. It's not like I'm putting this in the Smithsonian, Museum of Art or whatever. That would be a different caliber of work that you'd say, no, this needs to be excellence, only excellence. And then I'd put only the finest artworks. But this is an Instagram post, which I can delete at any time. So I look at my work and say, I don't know, this one is okay, but in the grand scheme of things, Susan, don't get stuck on perfection when good is enough. And people are just excited to see what you're producing. And the same thing goes for everyone who's listening too. Like, maybe it's not going to be a groundbreaking photo or whatever, but post it because people will delight in seeing what you're up to.
what a good piece of advice. Oh my gosh, that was excellent.
Thanks.
Really, really good. Great way to wrap this episode up with that piece, that gem. That was awesome. I'm actually going to put that in the notes because it was so good. And we're going to wrap this episode up and come back again with a little more on that voice of doubt because we're going to dig into that a little deeper.
Oh.
One more question, Susan, before you go. Tell us a little bit more about your workshops.
I lead workshops all around the world. We chase light from sunrise to sunset and even under the stars. And we don't just capture pretty landscapes. We create unique photo experiences. We bring models, we light paint with drones. We teach you how to capture it all, whether you're using your smartphone or the latest and greatest camera. Our workshops have been called a trip of a lifetime, and we like to do workshops that involve everything from daytime photography to nighttime photography. Some of our upcoming workshops include light painting in ghost towns of Nevada, shooting mountains and valleys from the highest refugios in the Dolomites, going on photo safaris in Africa, capturing architecture and cityscapes in New York City, chasing the stars in the Alabama hills and the Eastern Sierras, exploring the castles and churches of Slovenia, chasing the fall colors in Acadia, Maine, and celebrating the New Year in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. I also lead private tours. So if you ever are interested in going somewhere or learning something special, I lead one-on-one sessions. So if you feel like joining me on an adventure and learning about light painting or photography, reach out to me. My website is photouradventures.com. And on Instagram, you can follow my journey at Susan_Magnano. And I look forward to seeing what you guys create. So thank you guys for joining me. And I hope to see you guys on an adventure.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this podcast, The Creative Warriors, the female heart and soul of photography, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you for listening to the Creative Warriors Podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. See you next episode.